Here's Dream again. It's going to be a Planet of the Apes what if, mainly because I wrote a script for one a while ago, then I decided just to revise it after rewatching the first three movies, and I haven't seen Kingdom yet, but I have Hulu, and the first three movies are on Hulu, so, Actually, all the original movies are on Hulu from, 68 to Mark Wahlberg, and then, the Mark Wahlberg one was ass. I have it on DVD. But yeah, then we have the three from 2011 to 2016, I think. But yeah, so I'm gonna go over how we make Caesar an enhanced ape, or more enhanced. So Caesar is born with ALZ 112 from his mother, or 112 from his mother. But he has a defect, one that also coincidentally makes his eyes blue. He shows the intelligence of a teen at just under 6 months old, so about 4 or 5 months old. He shows the intelligence of a human teenager, which probably brings his IQ if I want to go average IQ to the 95 to 110 range. I think that's average. And by the time that Will would bring Caesar to the Redwood Forest, he does that for the first time when Caesar's 1 instead of 3, since his intelligence has developed enough to the point where he has not the body of an older ape, but he has the skill and finesse of one, definitely. So he can climb trees like that much easier. And then, when Caesar is 3, he actually begins to speak in small phrases, more grunts that he can turn into words. As the no he yelled at Dodge the first time. When he says no, he growls it out like that, because he can't really say it properly the first time around, but he'll growl it out no, and then say no. He has to growl it out first time, then he'll continue and say it properly. Then when it comes to yes, he can't really say yes, he just yells yeah, and then that works. And eventually, Will does realize Caesar's DNA is what's making him more enhanced than other apes that have been on ALZ 112. So he begins to include some of Caesar's DNA into the ALZ 12 compound and make a slightly more refined version of it, which will actually kind of cancel out some effects of it, but also enhance it. And to avoid being caught using this at work, he begins working on ALZ 112 Enhanced at home. And he uses that on his father instead, and it had the same effect, but with drastic increases in intelligence, brain capacity, easier comprehension and learning, enhanced healing on a mental health level, but also it'll increase organ health. By mental health level, I mean Alzheimer's is also a help, but when it comes to things like PTSD, depression, anxiety, all that basically becomes nearly wiped out with Caesar's DNA included in ALZ 112. But also has a few more unknown health benefits, mainly because you see it more noticeably in apes than humans. But Will's dad goes from basically a disease-ridden elder to an elder with the body of a 40-ish-year-old man. He's still not that strong, but he has way more energy, and he can act like it too. So yeah. Also, his disease is virtually erased instead of just being pushed off. So yeah. Pause. Sort of that. When Caesar is still 3, he basically just grows so fast in 1 year to the point where Will decides it's time for him to learn instead of just Caesar asking. Will just simply says that he thinks it's time for Caesar to learn. This happens even before he gets a girlfriend, so, yeah. Actually, no, it wouldn't, actually. Caesar's still 3 when Will gets a girlfriend. Happens before they're serious. So, yeah. So Caesar learns where he came from, but also Caesar's DNA strand is called ALZ 119. If you can guess where the 19 comes from, you get bragging rights for being smart and creative, but there's a specific reason that it's 119 and not 113 or 114. But ALZ 119 is a new name, but it's off record. When Caesar is about 8, he does learn to read. Why I'm doing from 8 is because I should pause one more time. Sorry, my apologies. The reason I'm making it go from 3 to 8 is mainly because when it came to the first movie, it said we had a scene where Caesar was going through the trees. Then it said it was because it went 3 years later, and then we have him going through the forest and going through the trees. But then it said 5 years later, he was still going through the trees. So I kind of assume that it's 5 years after he's 3. 5 plus 3, 8. It might just be saying that he's 5 years old, but it said 5 years later, and he was 3 at the time. So I'm assuming he's 8. So yeah. This also be like when he's like fully like just full ape size or full chimp size, and then he'd progressively just get smarter instead of bigger. So when Caesar is 8, he learned to read, and he can speak in he can say longer words, but in shorter sentences, kind of like how he does in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. He watches movies as well, including movies or documentaries about apes. So Caesar does know how apes act, but he's never interacted with them in person. By the way, when it came to like going to that person's house, he never does that. He knows better. But because of how smart he is, Will treats him like not a pet. Caesar is more capable of acting like an actual kid, instead of just a wild animal who's never been outside. Whenever Caesar like wants to go outside, he'll go like out, and Will brings him to the forest. So yeah. Now, eventually, we go on to Charles's Alzheimer's. It's still coming back, but not nearly as aggressively. But Will admits it's too risky to keep tampering Caesar's DNA to see if he can make ALZ better. Because, simply put, Caesar is progressing too fast along with his DNA to make any natural progression. At least to make any decently timed progression with Charles, Will's dad. Charles just wandered outside when trying to drive. It's not that he's trying to get in the guy's Mustang. He actually gets in Will's car. He can go for drives. With Alzheimer's, he has an episode as he's driving when he's coming back. When he kind of bumps the guy's car. It wasn't severely, but he came out saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry." And obviously having an episode, his memory is kind of hazy. And the man starting getting aggressive as Charles having an episode. It's hard for him to just keep the scenario in his head going. But immediately, Peter had noticed this and came outside, actually began separating instead of like attacking, like pushing them away from each other. Man freaking out, actually threw a trash can at Caesar, which Caesar pretty quickly with one hand just throws away to the side. When the man kept yelling, well, Caesar just grabbed him by the face and just yell, "Leave!" Kind of like how he had dodge, and Caesar's moment was just no. Caesar's moment with dodge is just leave. And he won't dodge, but with this neighbor, it's a very it's very clear. Like it's be a big moment for Caesar just because the words clear, cut, and demanding. And immediately the man runs inside the house, and people do come to like, "Hey, where's the chimp?" And immediately we'll just tell Caesar, hide. You don't need to be in the house, you need to be in someone else's house. Just hide and come back. And Caesar does just that, coming back. Like he's able to sneak into like just nearby bushes around there, then coming back like 2 days later, mainly eating just blackberries and thorn bushes. So yeah, and a few birds, but he's not proud of that. Now eventually, animal control does come back at some point, and they do hear Caesar. They take him in, and he's put in a chimp enclosure. It was all Caesar a whole different reason why he's going to stay in the enclosure, but he does actually ask, like, hey, Caesar usually has clothes. Can I at least give him some because he feels comfortable in those? So giving Caesar home to pick out clothes because he's smart enough to do so. But also Caesar the reason he's going to stay there. And Caesar will kind of says, if you don't go, they'll find out where you're from, and I'll be fired and arrested. But even worse, you'll be forced into that building to be put under experiments that are far worse than me drawing your blood every few months. Caesar didn't like having his blood drawn. He didn't like the sight of his own blood. But then he said something far worse happened to Charles. He'd be left alone in a home, dying, surrounded by no one he knows. And thought of Charles dying like that made Caesar immediately just hold his hand out on Will's chest and just say, "Caesar goes soon." Which Will kind of just cried. Before he did so, he actually told animal control, like, "Hey, give me 1 day with Caesar," and even paid them to let him have that 1 day, but he's able to convince them to make it more than 1 day. They leave it like 4 or 5 days. So yeah, so they gave him the weekdays to say goodbye to Caesar. Just get him all that. He visits the Redwood Forest one time, says goodbye to Will, Charles, Will's girlfriend, forgot her name. Also, Caesar just watched a few prison movies, because Charles made a joke before he kind of just started forgetting everything about, like, Like, oh, make the biggest guy there your bitch. And Charles, or not Charles, Caesar didn't know what that meant, but after a few movies, he learned pretty quickly. So, yeah. We go on to when Caesar gets to the enclosure. This one he wore a tank top and just short shorts. Well, short shorts, but like just shorts fit for like a child because Caesar isn't like 6'3". No, when a chimp began tugging at them, not on a rocket, just a random chimp. Caesar would immediately just use a somewhat enhanced body, like vocal cords, for example. Like Caesar's by no means like, oh, he's a chimp that can throw a car. No, he's a chimp, but like maybe he's like as strong as your average run of the mill gorilla. Not like he'll throw a car across a bridge. Like he can push back a gorilla a little bit, but like average if you were to go like muscle, a gorilla would likely win. But like out of 10, Caesar's gonna win a good 4 or 5. If it's just pure muscle, no like skills, Caesar's gonna win just 4 or 5 times out of 10 when it comes to strength contesting against gorilla. So yeah. But when he's there, when it came to just overall enhanced body, Caesar would actually be able to just like roar at like the chimp, and immediately the ape actually fell back, and every the chimp around him even covered their ears a little bit as they began just crawling back. Caesar would then grab the water jug and just drink some. So far, the only animal there that does not respect Caesar is quite literally just Rocket and Buck, I guess. Buck does not really care. Now, eventually, when Caesar's chilling, Rocket decides to smack Caesar with the water carton that the apes used to drink out of. Well, Caesar would fall off his branch, but immediately would use his extra gymnastic skills to be able to catch onto one of the branches with his foot and swing around. And he's swinging around kind of like people do the cartwheel form. He's not doing that, but around branches, where it actually confuses Rocket. Maybe as Rocket's looking around, suddenly from below, Caesar would grab Rocket's ankle, or like the back of it. So from behind, he grabs the back of Rocket's ankle with Caesar does that with his own foot before yanking Rocket down and dangling upside down where there's no branches for him to grab onto. Kind of in a clearing on the tree. Immediately, Rocket actually begins being shaken by Caesar, Caesar taking up and down, making Rocket just yelp and howl loudly until the point where he's about to pass out. But eventually, Rocket would just give up. Caesar can hear him give up, so he drops him onto like a few branches where he's able to catch himself. And basically, Caesar became alpha basically day 1 or day 2, not like a week into some plans. So yeah. Eventually, at some point, Caesar's chilling with Maurice, and they're talking in sign language, of course. Caesar hears about Maurice being a circus chimp or circus animal, and Maurice is like, yeah, how do you know sign language? Because your eyes are blue, like noticeably different than actual chimps. Sure about that. Eventually, Caesar is also able to actually coax out a few words from Maurice, because Caesar remembered how he was able to talk. Caesar has an enhanced brain, and when people associate with enhanced brain, they associate with being very skilled at their hyperfixations, or just photographic memory would be a common thing. I'm putting Caesar's like a photographic memory or a very dated back memory, so he remembers everything he went through learning how to talk. So in like a day, he's able to get Maurice to talk how Caesar did when he was just like a year old. Or 3 years old, cooking out like very drawn out nose. So, yeah. Eventually, Will does get like ALZ 112 to ALZ 113, sneaking in some of his own ALZ 119. Which, if you remember, comment what you think ALZ 19 stands for. You get bragging rights. To give a hint, it comes with the origin of Caesar's name. Talking about 2020, not 2020, but 2000s Caesar, not whatever Mark Wahlberg did in the 60s. Yeah. And Will's able to mostly perfect the ALZ virus, or genome, whatever you want to call it. And he was perfect by the time they used it on Koba. And I will say right now, it did not kill Franklin when he was exposed to it. It didn't. I'll go over that later. But we're waiting back to Caesar. He's able to free Buck, and when Buck was ready to charge, when he just turned around ready to charge, Caesar would immediately just roar at him like, wait. He just, like, yells it. Buck interrupts his charge because, one, Caesar's roar was, like, loud as a gorilla's roar is. Like, it stunned Buck that such a small animal made a noise. You don't get the reaction when, like, phrase it, like, What's what I'm trying to think of it is like, Lion King, when Simba's trying to howl at the hyenas when he's a kid, but then when he does howl, it turns out it was Mufasa. The hyenas had that reaction because they thought it was Simba till they saw Mufasa. Buck kind of has that reaction where he stumbles back even a little bit because he's like, wait, so is there another gorilla? No, it's just Caesar. But also gonna stop because Caesar spoke clear and perfect English. So Caesar would actually be able to calm down Buck and ease him out of his cage. Throughout the entire night, he's teaching Buck sign language. He's kind of like just saying words that he thinks Buck can understand and then putting them in signs. After like 30-ish minutes, Buck kind of puts together that whatever Caesar says and then does it with his hands, it means that word. So, yeah. Now, while Caesar's teaching Buck sign language, it's like personally, in the background, Maurice is teaching all the other apes sign language, and he can speak perfect to other apes. Not Maurice, I mean, Caesar is kind of, he can speak it as well, but it's not as good as Maurice's. Words. Alright. Now on to Franklin being exposed to ALZ 113 combined with 119. The reason it doesn't kill Franklin is simply because Caesar's DNA is basically a mutated version of ALZ 112, but also due to it being experimented on by Will at home and it never being exposed to Will directly, he knew there was a risk to it because of how mutated it was. So he assumed that ALZ 112 being mutated, in Caesar, there'd be risks. That's why Caesar has blue eyes. He's a mutated version of an ALZ chimp. So, with this, Will was able to basically cut out a fatal part of the ALZ 112 once he realized how much better Caesar's DNA was. So Caesar's DNA actually, instead of it being the deadly simian flu, it's still the simian flu, but has the mutated effect where it doesn't kill you, but it significantly alters your IQ levels and your ability to talk. Like Nova. I think Nova was just born with a mutated strain, so she grew up, and her IQ is going to grow as she grows up, but she will not be able to speak. But with Franklin, his IQ is going down because he's not born with it. He can't see, like, his speaking ability is going down progressively, and everything about it is just getting worse and worse. But it's actually noticeable. It's not like coughing and sneezing. It's just like some days, like maybe like day 3, he's like, what was that word? The big thing that we used to type. And someone like, computer? He's like, compotter. Yeah, whatever you said. And then it'd be like 2 weeks later, I want bagel. Not even saying bagel right. He'd just be losing his speech progressively over time, but in a short amount of time. So that's how Caesar's body is kind of altering 114 or 113, and then at home we'll actually put an order of trying to fix it still of ALZ 114, where it's now newly named. So yeah, but he does keep a lot of canisters of it at his house. The more mutated versions that you could do professionally in a lab without Jacobs noticing. Will has it professionally named instead of just self-named. So yeah. But Caesar would end up still breaking in, it's his house. He would still end up entering Will's house or his lab and taking one of the vials of blood of ALZ 114. Caesar would also end up taking his rings and putting them in his cage because he did miss those. Like, he properly installed them and everything without making a single noise. So yeah. But when he does eventually spread 114 through all the chimps, instead of thinking all their eyes green, they gained heterochromia, like overnight from Caesar's 114, because it's the regular ALZ 113, but also like combined with Caesar's DNA, creating 114. And heterochromia basically made their eyes, one is going to be gray, like a smoky gray color, the other one is going to be bright green. Or smoky gray blue kind of color. This is one eye, then the other one's bright green. Now, this basically would enhance their intelligence farther than what it was before, to the point where, like, overnight Maurice can actually form sentences like Caesar does in Dawn of the Planet of the Apes. I forgot if Maurice can actually speak in that one, but I assume he can, he just doesn't. So, yeah. But, eventually, Caesar would still plot and escape, but while he's out sometimes, he'll actually grab magazines on history, but specifically on generals who were in war during ancient times. And he'll understand, like, what the battle was about. He'll read between the lines, figure out what tactics were likely used, and pick out the best one, kind of jotting them down, as he can write a little bit. Not well, but he can write down bullet points, as he can actually read pretty well, but he can't write that well. Like, people who can't speak a language, but they can write and read it perfectly. Caesar can basically kind of do the opposite of that, where he can speak it and read it perfectly, but he can't write it. So, yeah. So Caesar kind of wrote down small bullet points of, like, what he's going to do. And then he's like, all right, these are all the old plans I need. This is easier for all the apes to understand in this form regardless. Also, apes like Maurice were also able to actually, like, learn to read small words. So yeah, like, he can read. He can read on the level of like a first grader, which I shouldn't compare to. I was advanced. But yeah. So at some point, Caesar's able to actually open Maurice, Buck, and Rocket's cages, but eventually the new arrival, Koba, as well. He opens his cage, and he brings them all out to Buck's cage, and they huddle in the corner and begin reading. Or Caesar begins reading to them as Maurice responds in small grunts, and then Maurice is also translating in sign language if a few of them are having trouble understanding some words. Pause. All right, sorry. Caesar would basically explain the tactics, and he has them pass on the tactics totally throughout all the other chimps, since they're not all as mentally progressed as the other ones in there are. So, later on, just fast forwarding a little bit to Dodge trying to attack Caesar when Caesar's out of his cage and having all the other apes escape. Actually, no. What I'm thinking of is Rocket going outside and challenging Dodge directly. Also, fun fact, I just realized Dodge is Draco Malfoy. Explains why he's a dick. Also, who names their fucking kid Dodge? The fuck? Oh yeah, so Dodge tries attacking Caesar. Caesar could actually like take the stun, as I don't think a stun baton is gonna make a gorilla jump back and recoil. Like Caesar like flinches, of course, and like his arm jolts. He's not gonna stumble back and yell at him. But eventually, when Charles Dodge is realizing, like, he's not working, I'm just gonna hit him across the fucking head. He's gonna immediately grab his arm and throw him into Buck's cage. He takes a stun baton, and when Dodge turns into the cage, Caesar just stuns his hand and then stuns him in the chest. Not killing him, but he's fucking, like, he hits the ground, barely able to stand. So yeah. But eventually, after Caesar is done with Dodge, we go on to letting every ape escape. Rhymes. When Will does come by the next day, though, he sees that Dodge is barely alive, and he has been very, very badly injured. As when he did break out at some point, Caesar kind of just beat the absolute shit out of him with the baton. He didn't kill him, but he beat the shit out of him badly. So yeah. Now the apes will go to the zoo using the cage like spikes to make weapons, or as weapons, not making them into weapons. But Caesar has his own weapons, being a dart rifle and a shock baton. Or the tranquilizer rifle and the stun baton, but also kind of like a sash with different syringes, and even on it, even like holstered is a tranquilizer pistol that he found at the zoo. So now for the bridge plan. All of the apes are aware of where they're going, how they're going to get there, and a tactic they should use should there be a fight. Caesar knew there was going to be a fight used and didn't expect the numbers, so there was a quick modification that quickly spread by just a few simple chirps and yells. Like, Caesar spread it to the apes, and then the least intelligent one of the apes that Caesar had was able to spread it to the much non-LZ enhanced apes. That easy. So yeah. Although Caesar did add more of his DNA, like kind of cutting his hand and then inserting it into the container with what was it? When he spread it to the other apes. So ALZ 119 plus Caesar's own DNA, or 114, if we want to call it now, because ALZ 119 and 114 are basically the same, but the one Caesar used is more direct, so to say. But it made a lot of the other apes smarter than they were in canon. So the information spread quickly, and the planned modifications were much better. And when all the apes vanished into the fog or under the bridge, Caesar was actually on top of the bridge. Then he would use a dart rifle to fire into the helicopter. He actually took out Jacobs and a few other, probably not Jacobs, but he's got a few other people, such as the cop with the main rifle and the co-pilot, not taking the main pilot directly. Now, when the pilot tries to like steer towards the apes, like, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna take you all with me. You typically should be jumping on the plane, weighing it down on one side, and making it crash. Jacobs is pinned down under the helicopter after he fell out of it, and his legs are being crushed. Immediately, he begins like yelling for help. As he sees the only thing walking over to him is Koba. And immediately, as like he's yelling for help, he actually means like yelling for mercy, even like, hey, come on, you don't need to do this. You can just go ahead, just get this thing off me at least. Koba would just keep walking to the other side of the helicopter for ripping off a rotor. And he walks over to Jacobs, who's still yelling and pleading, until Koba just yelled, "Silence!" slamming it down on Jacob's skull, cutting it in half, basically, killing him. Now, the chimps get to Redwood Forest, and when Will arrived, he was able to, sign to Koba, saying, not well, but he says, I come peace. Which immediately Koba kind of just said out loud, "I hear words good." You know what he's just trying to say? I can understand what you're saying. You don't need to use sign language. But Will was a bit confused to what Koba said, only for a split second, realizing what Koba was trying to say. And then Will kind of yelled, saying I'm Caesar's father. And immediately Koba was a bit mad, yelling and beating his chest, until Caesar arrived and did the whole "Caesar is home." Well, he said, "I am home now," is what he said instead, because he can speak much better than the original story. So, pause real quick. I'm sorry about that. But this is the end of Rise of the Planet of the Apes. If you guys think I should go into Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, I have a script for that as well. I can make quick revisions, and then just tell me if you want it. Alright, hope you guys enjoyed. Like and subscribe for more. Adios.